Hello there. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking our time to join us here tonight. It's a privilege. I don't take it for granted, bearing in mind that you could have been anywhere doing anything, but you felt it necessary that there is some value that I have to offer you. And so for me, I don't take it for granted. Again, thank you. For many of you who may not know me, my name is Jeffrey Nsofo. I am the host, the convener of the Being the Best of You platform. And Power to Dream is a segment on the platform where we create a hub that more or less enables people to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. And so what would happen is I'll just play a short introduction video to what Being the Best of You is all about. Perhaps it's your first time in the community and you want to know more about what we are all about. It's about a 3-minute clip, and I'll be back after the break. Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Nsofo. I'm the founder and the convener of the Being the Best of You platform. Being the Best of You platform is a platform that I started in the year 2014, and the motivation behind this was simply this. At that time of my life, the life that was my current reality and the life that I desired were not in convergence, and so I needed to create something that would help me and the people around me to become the best versions of themselves. And as the name goes, being is quite significant for me because humans are always evolving. And the reason why this is because times and seasons change. And if you fail to keep up with the times and the seasons, pardon me to say that you will be left out. And so in the Being the Best of You platform, we are established on 5 key points or 5 pillars as I would liken them. The first one is the Christian faith. The other one is family life. The third one is our finances. And the fourth is leadership. And the fifth is your personal development. Christian faith, mainly because everything that I do is founded on my convictions as a Christian, and so that galvanizes all the content and all the resource materials that we provide on the platform. The second one is the family life. I'm very big on family. I simply do that because the family life is a subset of the community. And the truth is being that if you get it right at the family level, the society will be better off for it. Then the next thing is the finances. The truth is that everyone needs money. As a matter of fact, a wise man said that money is a defense. In other words, it safeguards you against the basic things or the necessities of life that you need to resolve. And so perhaps your motivation is you want to provide your family with the life and the lifestyle that you have always envisioned for yourself. Being the Best of You is the place where you could learn those things on how to kickstart a business, how to scale a business, how to even improve on your personal finances. These are the things that we provide the people within our community. The fourth one being leadership. I simply believe this by reason of conviction, that leaders are not born, but leaders are made. In other words, leaders can actually be trained to become great leaders. As you well know, the reason why societies fail is simply because it's a leadership issue. And so we provide leadership trainings for organizations. We provide leadership trainings for also individuals or executive leaders who desire to go from one level of leadership onto the other. And finally is personal development. I believe this is significant because anything that is going to change must first of all start from you. If you don't change, the things around you would not change. And so we're big on this. And so perhaps it's your first time coming in contact with myself. These are the things that you should expect from me. And I trust that the guys in the team and myself, this is how we intend to serve you. And by so doing, we trust God that you will become the better version of yourself. And so until next time, keep being the best of you, and God bless you. Welcome again. Welcome. Glad to have you all here. Perhaps you joined a few seconds before I started playing the video. Again, my name is Jeffrey Nsofo. I am your host for tonight. I'm the founder and the convener of Being the Best of You platform. We're privileged to have our guest online at the moment, and so I wouldn't want to take her time. Perhaps if you have seen her profile from the emails that I sent, for those of us who are in the community, then you will understand that time is money. Okay, and so I don't take it for granted. So I just introduce the guest formally, and then we'll carry on with what we have to do here tonight. Okay, so tonight perhaps you're wondering who is this guest. I have a bio here that I'm going to read. It could be quite intimidating, but don't worry, her sense of humor nullifies anything that would want to make you feel intimidated. And so basically, Amakan Sofo, she is the principal industrial specialist in the debt capital markets at the International Finance Corporation, which is also a member of the World Bank. She's a leading debt capital market professional with global experience spanning from Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, and also the Middle East. Having worked with several international investment banks such as Standard Bank, Barclays, Standard Chartered Bank, and prior to joining the IFC, which is International Finance Corporation, she was an executive director at the Debt Capital Markets Africa at Standard Chartered Bank. Over the course of her career, she has originated and executed several bond transactions across diverse industries and sectors, and she has also worked with the central bank and the stock exchange of several emerging market economies, particularly in Africa, to develop their bond market and facilitate their debut access to the international bond market. In other words, perhaps you're from a country in Africa and your country has been seeking ways to raise capital. I won't be surprised if she has helped your country. And so she has also worked with the central bank and the stock exchange, but nonetheless, she's recognized as an industrial leader and was featured as the top woman in business by the Business Day magazine in 2021. She was also listed at 50 most inspiring women in 2022, and she featured as top 10 most successful business women making the difference by the CIO Views International magazine. However, other than her professional life, Amaka is very passionate about charity work. She's the founder of the Female Scholars Foundation, which is also an organization that provides university sponsorship to young girls in rural communities. To your amazement, she's a Nigerian citizen, a patriot at that, holds a BA in accounting from the University of Lagos, as well as a dual MBA from the University of Columbia and London Business School. For the Power to Dream community or the Being the Best of You community, please make welcome our guest for tonight in no other person but Amakan Sofo. You're welcome. You're welcome. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks. Your platform is weird. I feel like I'm in a prison. I can't even see, you can't see people. You don't know what's going on, but at least they can see me. So that's fine. No private chats. I can't see the things happening in the private chats in the background and people insulting me. But
no one will insult you. I think we're quite cultured in this community, so we don't do such things. So again, welcome very much. I'm very grateful for this. It's been a long time coming. I know that I think we started planning this sometime in July, but
yes,
based on your schedule and things like that, so I don't take it for granted. And thank you for making yourself available here tonight. Okay. And so just to kind of ease the conversation so that the guests can get to know you and things like that. So if you don't mind, could you please let us know who is Amakan Sofo, so to speak?
That's a very long question. First of all, you didn't tell anybody this part, but Jeffrey is my cousin. So I think I have to...
I didn't want to start pulling privileges, so I just wanted to just keep it formal.
By saying that so Amakan Sofo is family. I'm Jeffrey's family. We're cousins. Our dads are brothers. And for me, I'm super excited with what you're doing on the platform. It's not every time that we have opportunities to merge our faith and career together, right? And it's a really, really bold initiative. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
In terms of who am I, I'm going to not look at you so that I don't laugh. I'm going to not look at you so that I don't laugh. But I think, there's a lot about me in the public domain. I guess the only thing I would say is I have like 7 core values that I live by. I don't know if the crowd can see me actually. I have a values card. I always have it in my wallet. So this says Juliana and stuff, and this is my hierarchy of my 7 values card. That
Okay.
basically just defines the core things that guide me. And on the top of the pyramid, it says faith. So when you started your program and you talked about how faith is at the center, I said, yes, we're family for a reason. Our parents must have done something right.
Absolutely.
But I think, for me, my faith is at the center of everything I do. There's one thing that's something people who are very close to me at work know. Other people who see me from a distance may not know, but I hope that they do see that from my attitude and in how I treat others. So I say one thing all the time. I'm like, look, the only thing do or die for me is God. Everything else is secondary, right? That's my number one. And then, secondly, that's my identity. I find many people in the workplace defining themselves by who they are, what work they do, the accolades they've gotten, the recognition they've gotten. And what tends to happen to those people is at times when you don't have all those people cheering you on anymore, you lose a sense of who you are. That's why we see so many celebrities
Absolutely.
committing suicide, right? So even
Absolutely.
in my organization, sometimes one of my ex bosses would be like, you know what, we need to do this. Let's prove ourselves. This is what makes us who we are. Let people recognize us. And I looked at him one time. I was just like, this is great, but my work is not my identity. I don't feel that extra pressure to derive my identity from this. My identity is my faith. So that's one thing I wanted to set aside outside of all these accolades and whatever it is from a career perspective. Another thing as well, family is super important to me. That's the second thing here. So it's not surprising again that you said family. But again, for me, a lot of my motivation and what I do just comes from family, both nuclear and extended. The third pillar here is relationships. For me, relationships narrows into 2 buckets. So honesty and service. That's what this chat actually says. Service because you can't do it. I love people. I'm a very people person. I'm a friendly person. When I'm not working, I'm looking for who I would have dinner or drinks with or just basically chatting around with friends. Relationship makes life go smoothly. I'm very much a people's person, which again is something that a lot of people who have worked with me or have come across me can attest to. And what are the things that have made these relationships beneficial to me and everybody else? I would say 2 things. One is service. I create value. If you don't create value for people, don't think, don't fool yourself. Human beings are very transactional. Whether it's your friends, whether it's your people that you're working with, whether it's your church, everybody's like, what is in it for me? So you have to
True.
be able to create value for people to want to continue to be in a relationship with you. And then honesty. So for me, it's honesty and service. The value that I create to those relationships, and then the honesty. People like people that they can trust. Clients like you because you're their trusted advisor. People like you, friends like you because they can trust you. So for me, those are the 2 bedrocks that embed every relationship that I have. And the last pillar here is success. Success because if I'm not growing, if I'm not succeeding, I feel like I'm capped and my wings are capped. So I always want to be in a situation where I'm excelling in whatever I'm doing. And the success for me has 2 buckets. It has excellence and it has growth. Growth because I cannot stop. You have to, for you to keep succeeding, you have to keep
To
seeking to
keep growing.
and then for you to
Absolutely.
also succeed, you need to have an excellent mindset. If you call me to wash plates, I will wash those plates the same way I will work in the office. When I was planning my father's funeral, and Jeffrey experienced the same thing, it was almost like a whole project. Like for me,
True.
whatever I'm doing, I apply the same level of excellence to it. So those are the 2 things that underpin success. So I would say that's really people here getting the first glimpse as to what my values are that I carry about. So that's a very big component of who I am. Then outside of all these nice things, I'm a very unserious person. Jeffrey has already said it. I'm super friendly. I'm very goofy. I'm like, if I wasn't in finance, I'm very certain I would have been a comedian. So I'm very funny. I love to be with friends. I love to hang out with people. And just for the audience here, don't judge me, but I do like K drama. So that's another thing I'm really spending my spare time doing when I'm not being useful to the society. But that's really me.
Absolutely. And I think for those who don't know you, one of the things that really fascinated me, because I never knew you had the hierarchy card, because I think one of the things that led me to start the Being the Best of You foundation or platform, more or less, perhaps the foundation is in the background. I never had a mic, but one of the things that really led me to do this was there was a point in my life in 2014, like I said in the introductory video, and I felt this chasm within me, and I had to have a retreat, and I wrote down on a piece of paper, who am I? In other words, what are my values? Because you realize that values are the rail tracks that really guide you to the desired destination. And so for me, I think is super duper inspiring that you have this already. Do you get what I mean? But nonetheless, I would want to ask another question just to get it going. Is that so? What's your background? In other words, when I say your background, we've mentioned that you're from a faith-oriented family, but aside from all that, how has your background shaped you into the person that you are today?
Yeah. No, that's a very useful question. I think we already talked about the faith. Um, that is part of the things that instilled a lot of discipline in me. Growing up, I came from a home where my dad was super religious. If you do anything wrong, he sends you to go and reflect, and read 3 chapters of the Bible and 3 Psalms. So they literally used to punish me with the
It
Bible.
was rugged. And even even me, right? Even me, right? On a side note, I used to fear for you guys. Honestly,
Yeah, we were terrorized. Like it was short of us hiding M&B novels inside our Bible, just so we could, do a little bit of stuff that other people were doing. But you laugh at these things and you see it as a bondage when you're growing up, but it actually ends up shaping the person you are and shapes your values as you grow old. And I guess that's why the Bible says, teach a child the way they should go, and when they grow, they would never depart from it. And that has played through in my life. Second thing as well, I would say is family. A lot of, I have siblings who have a genetic condition. I have 4 siblings who have sickle cell. A lot of my very close friends will know that. And they're happy for me to mention that. They don't hide it because it's a testimony. But I think what that meant is that growing up, you have times when people are sick. And I was an AS, I was fine. You're the one who is sleeping in the hospital with people. You're the one who is taking care of people. You're the one who basically the family relies on you because I was healthy and my siblings were not. So it helps you see life from another perspective. And my push was that I want to make sure that everybody is okay. So even when I started work from my first income, I'm already supporting my family. And I'm like, I always need to make sure that I'm doing well and I'm growing so that if at any time, I mean, God has been very faithful. Everybody is healthy. We've lost only one person. Everyone is doing well. But at every point where someone is maybe not doing well or is sick or is not able to work, I'm able to chip in. So a lot of my junior leadership skills and management has actually come by I wasn't the firstborn, but I had to step into that natural position because I was healthy and a lot of, my siblings weren't. And I think that has been shaped me whether it comes to resilience, shaped me whether it came to leadership, and just generally been a driving force in terms of they say it's people who have eating or who have health that can complain about things that it also give me a lot of empathy. So many times when you want to give back, you want to make impact, you want to help people, you want to impact the society, it's also because I've seen and witnessed pain, and that's part of the things that have driven my life.
I've, you know, funny enough, on a side note again, coincidentally, a friend of mine I'm not sure she's here, but I would love to have her on. So Tinuke, if you're here, this is just my subtle way of just sowing that seed. She had a webinar on Saturday, and the caption of the webinar was "From Trauma to Triumph." She lost her son of blessed memory to last year, but it was on the basis of that tragic event that she discovered herself. And so for me, what I'm trying to highlight in the fact is that one of the things that makes your story remarkable is the fact that despite the pain, you were still able to see the learning points, or the, should I say, nuggets that would help you to become who you are today. And I think the take home for me would be to tell anyone, don't waste your pain. Don't waste your pain. Like you rightly said, it was because you were the healthy one and you needed to look after your younger ones, or the elder ones in this case, that led you to learn management skills, people skills, multitasking, and all those things in their own little way have shaped you to the executive that you are today. And so again, just leading on to that conversation, then my question would then be, people are here now, they know who Amaka Nsofo is, but let's get to the nitty gritty of why we are here tonight. And my question then would be, what's your current role like? What's your current role? And in other words, what's your career trajectory? How has it been? That's a better way to put it. So give me a glimpse of the life of Amaka, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's a very useful question. I actually, and I think it's a very important one, because when people look at the theme and see things like, shattering black ceilings and breaking the glass, and there's no magic about it. It's a series of small efforts and deliberate actions that you've done consistently over time that takes you to where you are or where you want to be. So, in terms of, I would say, my current role, or what I've primarily, so currently I work for IFC, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. And I deal with I'm primarily responsible for supporting the bond investments across the world. So whether it's Latin America, Asia, Africa, Middle East, so I support our global bond portfolio from an investment standpoint. And prior to that, I've primarily been in investment banking. Jeffrey mentioned I was an executive director in debt capital markets in Standard Chartered. Again, helping countries and helping companies raise funding that would help them develop their respective companies or countries respectively. So that's primarily what I've done. In terms of my career journey or career trajectory, I think I would take you, I like to tell stories because it's a very easy way to convey and build experiences. For me, it's a lot easier to highlight learnings or things that I may have done well that have gotten me to where I am than answering what are the key tips to success or whatever it is. So in my bio, it was rather I attended university in Unilag. I actually went to a Nigerian university. And it starts from there. So for those of us that still have younger ones, there's never, like, you actually start building your success story right from, as nitty gritty as that level. And there's something I always say that has guided my life up until now. It's, where do you want to go to? So a key question I always ask myself, where do you want to go to? And what skills do you need to get there? For me, that's a driving principle. So I got into university, I started studying accounting. I don't have any connections. People would always say, oh, the job market is difficult, the job market is difficult. I tell them it's a lie, because when I see talents, I'm so happy to snatch them up. If you distinguish yourself, people would want you. So for me, it was about that. What do I do to separate myself so that when I come out of school, I don't have any connection. I don't have, rich people lying about. I'm able to get into the kind of field that I want to get. So I started doing my ICANN in university. Luckily for me, I had very good friends in school who were equally minded in terms of direction. By the time I came out of school, I was already chartered. Now that gives me an edge because if people are looking for a job and they don't have that, they just have their BSc degree. I have my BSc degree. I have my ICANN certificate, and I won a couple of awards both in school and ICANN as well. So it already gave me an edge when it came to even the job market. Now, I also knew very specifically that I wanted to get into investment banking and I wanted to get into basically that whole finance field. Once I finished school, I started talking to people like, what's the next thing after ICANN? CFA was becoming a wave. There was very few CFA members in Nigeria at that time. I attended their conference to know what it takes to become a CFA member. I met one guy at the conference and started talking to him. He said he used to work for in a consulting firm, Frontier Capital. They were doing M&A advisory, corporate finance. And I told him, please, I would like you to submit my CV to your company. That's another thing I started doing from when I was young. I speak up. I don't wait for the opportunities to come to me. I go get the opportunities myself. And the guy, I'm like, look, I don't need any connection. Just submit my CV to your HR. And
Get me into the room.
Get me into the room. So he looked at me. I didn't know. He didn't know me from anywhere. He was like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to submit your CV. So he did. And the HR called me for an interview. And I got to the interview and I got the job. In fact, I looked at my notes that the interviewer took like a few months later. And one of the comments he just put in bold was like, she's very hungry. I didn't even know that came out even at that level. So when my mates were doing NYSC, I was there doing, and people were doing NYSC. I had already even started my CFA exams doing my NYSC. So I already started doing CFA. So I already was getting ahead of the curve in terms of the investment banking career that I wanted. What do you need for investment banking? I know I needed to be able to build financial models. I know I needed to know how to do valuation. These are not really things that they teach you in universities in Nigeria. I taught myself modeling. I taught myself valuation myself. I went to a job interview actually. One job interview I went to as a fresh graduate. I was given a laptop to do evaluation because you're not competing with only the regional players. You're also competing with these kids who schooled abroad, who have been interning in JP Morgan and different places all their lives. He gave me a laptop to do evaluation. I did this valuation, stood before the MD, defended my evaluation, and even got into some arguments with him on PE ratio. The guy was there, and you just came out of school. He was like, please come and take this job. But I didn't want to work there. But I guess the point was, I was already grooming myself. I knew that, yes, I'm just in this place, but this is not where I want to be. I want to get into one of the international banks. I want to get into investment banking. And I need to build the skills that they would require. Now, that's the second phase of my life. I was traveling for I think I was advising a client then in Maiduguri or somewhere. I can't even remember. And I was a very young girl, but I was very cheeky. And I was presenting to the board. I was just working with so many assumptions, analysis. One of the directors came to me and said, Madam Assumption, how old are you? That you built a whole business for us from nowhere. We don't even have a vision of where we're going. You've painted things that are not there. I'm like, oh yes, but it can be actualized. And he said, you're really smart. I'm so proud. I don't know you, but I'm so proud of you. So that's how I feel. But I didn't end it there. I took his number and we started talking because some girls are always like, I don't want to take anybody's number. So let them not toast me. You need to know how to manage the dynamic. People respect intellect. So because I was coming from an advisory standpoint and they knew I wasn't some stupid girl because I was actually adding value to the board in the advice that I was giving to them. And then I told him, look, I'm really looking to branch out and get to one of the big investment banks. I want Stanbic or Citibank. Those are the only two banks I'm looking at. Those are the only two places I want to work in Nigeria. I was like, do you know anybody in those firms? I just asked. And I keep telling people, ask. A closed mouth is a closed destiny. Just ask.
Absolutely.
So just the fact that I made that ask, he said, that he knows Yewande Sadiku, who used to be the CEO of Stanbic at that time, but they're not close, but that he was friends with the brother. So I said, that's fine. I don't need you to make a recommendation for me. I just need her email. I want to be able to tell her, look, I got the email from this person. So she can at least look at the resume and not toss my resume out before it's even, and just take it as a prank email that she gets. I'm like, don't speak to her, don't speak to anybody. I just want to be able to say, I got your contact from this person. I know you. And then he said, that's fine. He was just taking aback, like, who is this 22 or how many? I can't remember how old I was. He was like, okay, that's fine. Do it. So I took his email and I sent him under an email. It took me like almost 6 months or 8 months of following up back to back. But within, after a while, she reached out to me and they said, look, schedule an interview with her. And I started interviewing with Stanbic up to the CEO level, and I got the job. In fact, even when I got the job, she reached out to him and said, thank you for, for this person that you did give us. And that was how my career picked up in investment banking. Now, getting into the job, because it's not about just getting into the room, right? When you then get into the job, what do you do? Two things I set out to start building quickly: credibility. For every place you go, people start talking about breaking stars. You don't start by breaking stars by going to go and para. There's no parachute that will take you to the top. It starts from even the most little role that you're given. I started by building credibility. Everything I was there, I was a very hard worker. I always tell people these things. Make your boss need you so much. Like, make your boss need, like, anticipate his needs and fulfill it ahead of time. Your boss will just find people respect people that they value. Like, my boss could not do without me. So I had built credibility in the firm. I had built credibility in the industry. I started getting myself involved in several things, different committees to help shape growth in the industry. I was involved in all that. And a lot of people, I started to get some attention in the market. And eventually I went to them and said, look, I've been here for 3 years now. We're part of an international organization. I want to go to Standard Bank in London. Because I already knew the next thing for me. What do I need? I want an international exposure. For every 3 years, I've mapped out where do I want to go to and what do I want to achieve. 3 years, I know where I want to be at the end of the third year. And I started having that conversation. Look, I've proven myself here. You really know me. I think it's very beneficial for me to get international experience. And this is how it will benefit our business when I come back. They let me go to London and sent me there for 6 months. When I went, I remember my boss sending an email to me and he was just like, I feel like my hands and my legs have been cut off. That's one of the most touching emails I've ever received. But that's how much I made sure that I was needed and I was. In fact, when he even goes, sometimes it's like, this one, just leave her, she'll run the department on her own, Even then, I was an analyst at that time. So I went to London, same thing, because the credibility you built in Nigeria is different.
It will speak for you.
You're starting from the beginning. Nobody
knows.
Okay. So he's not speaking for you. You have to basically start. People would hear things, but until they experience you, it's all hearsay. So I had to start building credibility again from the beginning in London. Rather than a 6 months transfer that they sent me to, they kept me there for 2 years. And whilst I was there, my boss in London kept moving it. Basically, he kept telling me, say the word and you won't go back to Nigeria. And whilst we were doing that, I also started getting exposure to the other banks as well, because I was like, look, I need to make sure. At that point, I was like, what is my target? My target is not just to be international. I want to get into one of the bulge bracket investment banks, either Barclays, JP Morgan, or Goldman, like really one of the top global brands. That's where I want to get in. And I started making contacts. What do I need to get here? I've built relevant experience. I've built relationships. Who do I need? I spoke to a few friends in London, introduced me to headhunters. I want to make sure that they know me and that when they're having conversations in different places, my name is being mentioned. So I've always been super strategic around where I want to get to and what do I need to get there. So eventually, after about 2 years whilst I was in London, in fact, the day I was leaving London, Barclays called me to come to their office for interviews. And that was how I started interviewing with Barclays. I had other people who had made me job offers, but I was very clear on what I wanted and I was going for it. And then that was how I got into Barclays. And then from there, my career just kind of like skyrocketed, because from there, I now started running Sub-Saharan Africa, DCM for them, XSA. Everybody, it just started to kind of like grow from there. And in 2018, when Barclays was exiting Africa, Standard Chartered came to poach me to join their business as an ED for debt capital markets, and that's how I moved to StanChart. And then from StanChart, I got to the World Bank. But in everything, my key motto was the same. And even when I was in StanChart already, I was like, look, now I'm an ED. What do I need to prepare for? I need to make MD promotion. I need to, start getting attention from global brands. What do I need? I need to brand myself to make sure that people actually know me and what I stand for. I need to, I had done ICANN, I had done CFA, I had done this one, but I wanted like core international MBA from Ivy League schools that people would recognize. I signed up for a dual MBA. That's when I went to Columbia. I went to London Business School. I'd already started preparing myself for the next level of leadership because I knew where I wanted to go to. So I started preparing myself for that. And whilst I was doing that, a World Bank recruiter reached out to me that they were trying to set up a new department, a new business, and they thought I would be the right candidate. And then after a while, it was advertised. I applied, and the rest is history. But points remain the same. Know what you want, know what you need to get there, and pursue it actively. Then wherever I am, I've always done key things. I build credibility, and I do it consistently. If there's one thing I say in the industry, like whatever you achieved yesterday, your yesterday's success is as good as yesterday. Nobody remembers. So for everywhere you get to, you replicate your success. So I build credibility, I do it consistently, and then it gets me to the next level. And then I speak as well, because many people as well don't speak. You speak up for what you want to make sure that you're actually getting what you deserve at every point in time. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that has
No.
trajectory.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what Power to Dream series is all about. It's about getting people to a community where they live inspired. That's the whole idea behind it. And so you are being true to type, it's like fitting a square peg in a square hole. You're the perfect fit for what I'm saying. But there's something that you really mentioned here that I think is worthy of note. I know for a fact that from statistics, finance is a predominantly male or how to put it, testosterone-ly driven industry. I don't want to beat my tongue in the name of trying to sound all of a pedantic and all, but the whole idea of what I'm trying to say is that I know the finance industry is heavily male-driven. So my question then would be, because I know that only in recent times, one of the things that gave rise to the feminist movement was the whole idea that, men and women were not being paid equally, particularly even in the finance industry. I know there was a research at some point in time that said that I think it was in the US for Wall Street, that there was a large disparity between what men and women were being paid. And so my question then would be, for you dwelling or functioning in a male-driven industry, how have you been able to rise despite barriers like race, gender, and things like that?
Yeah. The way this is a very complicated question, that every place you go to now, breaking the bias, but it's a very topical issue. When people ask me this question, I think, look, the way I see it is, what is a bias, right? Bias is something that is not like it's a negative impression about something. So it's like saying women are weaker than X in XX ways, women should be this. It's a negative impression, but we say this is not what it is. What the impression you have is false. So if you think an impression somebody has is false, what do? You act to the contrary, right? So whether we like it or not, a lot of people say things like, I've heard things like, why do women have to, yes, there is a gender bias, but you find out that women have to work twice as hard as men to get the same level of recognition. But it's your reality, at least until the world gets better. There is a lot that is being done to change that. but you have to prove yourself. So I think, one thing that I would say in terms of how I've managed to break any bias, whether it's race or gender, is people are not expecting me to create value because they're biased, right? I will create value. What you think is not who I am, but this is who I am. So I just basically have to constantly prove myself to make sure that people see the value that I am bringing. So I think that's one. I'm not an, there are people who make a lot of empty noise. You see people, they just be shouting up and down and they're not really, creating much. Yes, some men may get away with it. You see some men, it's a boys' club, they will go out, get the right deals, do this, do that, and then they get promoted. But unfortunately, that may not be you. So just consistently creating value, I think, has been key to rising despite the biases. Then I guess the second thing I would say is confidence. It's very important for you to know who you are. Not confident, you let what people define you as become your reality. So what you define me as is not going to be my reality. It's what I say I am that I am. And I will show you that I'm what I say that I am, if that makes any sense. So there's a level of self-confidence that you need to have. I don't even see, sometimes I'm almost immune from this because I don't see it. I just live my life. I don't care if you're black, white, green, blue. I see you as a level. I even because normally if you're approaching a situation from a mindset that you're already defeated, you will be defeated.
It's a mindset thing.
But if you're coming from a position that I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to be prejudiced against, I'm black, they are white, I'm a woman, I don't think that. I just think, oh, these are people that, we're in this thing together. So because I don't have that mindset, I don't act from a weak position. I act from a position of self-confidence. And I think that has really helped. Then I think another thing I would say is knowledge. Like spend time. It's very hard for people to shut you up when you know what you're saying. So spend time building knowledge. Like there was a time when I used to thrive on, everybody would just say, there are times where, how do I put it now? I've been in a committee or in a room full of like really, even when I was an analyst, like really old men, people that don't even, and they'll be arguing about something, and I'll just raise my hand up. Then I was very like, I'm like, sorry, can I make a contribution? I know I'm not supposed to talk, but can I say something? They're like, they're just done. What? I'm like, the world has kind of moved on. There are these new regulations coming out now. I think that was actually an ethics related issue. And it was something that naturally intrigued me. So I was reading up and researching on it as part of my CFP. And I was like, oh, that this is what the ethics committee says now. This is how things work. And this is what maybe we can consider. And by the time I was done, they were like, that makes so much sense. They start calling me Mobono Feli Feli. But
Fire.
Once you have knowledge and you're not chatting shit, like you're actually saying what makes sense, you're bringing value, it'll be very difficult for people to disregard you. So that's another thing I wanted to say. Then I'll say thirdly as well, I'll say speak up. Many people with all this race gender issue, particularly when it comes to race, gender, this is very specific to women. I had one of my colleagues at one time in another department. She didn't get promoted. And I felt so sad because I didn't even know. I wasn't fighting for her. So I just went to her boss and I was just like, it's so sad like this lady didn't get promoted. And guess what he said? I didn't even know she was expecting a promotion. She's been in the role for 5 years or 6 years in one role. Why wouldn't she be expecting a promotion? But guess what? The lady didn't do anything. She didn't say anything. She was there thinking that, I'm going to be doing my job and then they will promote me. Doesn't happen because whether we like it or not, there are still these biases. Said it at the beginning. A closed mouth is a closed destiny.
It's a closed destiny.
I ask for what I want. Like I would literally travel to go and see my global heads when I was in banking. I'll go to your office. I'll sit down with you. I'll book a meeting. And I'm like, these are my plans. Oh, now I've made ED. I want to have more regional coverage. I want to have this. How do I get to MD? What's the path? I want to know that when I do XXX, I'm going to get MD position. How do I get here? What's the path? Let's discuss. So you already know my aspirations even 2 years before time. I'm not waiting for you to will I say, plan out my life or give me what you feel I'll deserve. I'll ask for what I'll feel like. And if I don't deserve it, again, with all humility, because there's a lot of emotional intelligence that goes into this thing so that you don't piss people up the wrong way. But speak up as well for where you want to be, whether it's pay, whether it's level, whether it's promotion, whether it's opportunities that you want to be giving to you at work. Just speak up.
One of the things that really fascinates me in what you're saying is the fact that you don't just speak up about what you want. Is the next thing that really fascinates me is to ask, what do I need to do to get there? Because there is always something that needs to be done. So that in that case, you're able to manage expectations. It's a case of if it was like when we were growing up, our parents would say, okay, you want to do this or you want to get this. If you get good grades in school, then you are entitled to get this. Because I think even for me, for example, I'm in management in my place of work. And I noticed that so many people are so entitled. They're so entitled. Your length of service, I'm sorry to say, gone are the days when you work 30 years in an office and they'll give you a Rolex watch. It doesn't happen any longer. And so they believe, length of service is what would determine whether I should get a pay rise or what. No, it's not. Value is not gender biased. Value is not racially driven. If you're on the deathbed and you need a doctor to cure you, you're not going to be wondering, is the doctor Muslim or Christian, or is he a male or female? The idea is that this guy has the competence or this lady has the competencies needed to save my life. And by all means, crack on with it. And so for me, I think for anyone who is here watching, I think is a fantastic take home that you don't just speak about what you want, but you back it up with required actions. I think that's very fantastic. But again, then that will lead me to asking you then, so far in your career path or on your journey, what has been the greatest challenge so far, or that has more or less shaped you into the person that you are today?
Challenge is plenty. This is life that we're living. But from a career perspective, I would say one of the greatest challenges that I've had to navigate over and over again has been ageism. So if I when people talk about biases and they say race and gender, I'm always like, my own bias has been ageism. Because people look at you and
for those who don't understand ageism, in other words, is when you're criticized or denied certain things on account of your age.
Or people just look at you and they rate you based on your age. What is this small girl, for lack of a better term, particularly in Africa, coming to tell me? And I was in an industry whereby, so if imagine you're doing $1 billion fundraising, right? Those are transactions that the CEO is involved in, the CFO is involved. You're dealing with the super top level of the organization. If I'm raising funds for a country, I'm dealing with the Minister of Finance, I'm dealing with the head of debt management office, I'm dealing with the central bank governor. So you're literally dealing with a very, very, very top echelon of management of countries and of companies. And then they look at you and they say, what does this small girl want to tell me? I even kuku look young. I'm not as young as I look, but it has been one of the greatest challenges that I faced in my career. I remember a board meeting. I often tell this story. A board meeting I came into, I think it was in 2016 or so. I can't remember. It was different banks. And then the CEO of the company then said, we asked all the banks to send their representative, and we note that XX company did not send their senior representative in a room full of people, like almost just like,
oh wow,
so upset that who is this small girl that they sent to this meeting? Hey God.
They didn't know it was small girl, big engine.
But I take all these things. Sometimes it's what you let affect you that affects you. I smiled, crossed my leg, dumped my leather handbags on the table, looked at him and said, don't worry, I'm senior enough to handle all your problems. And then I was looking for fun. I was just like, in fact, I made a point of note that for everything they were discussing at that meeting, I had 10 strategies that could be better than what they wanted. By the time we were done, the man walked me downstairs. In fact, every time we travel, if I'm traveling, like, please change her flight. No, you can't leave us halfway. No, you can't leave us halfway. We need you. Like, the narrative till today were actually very good friends, but people always look at you from that perspective of what does this small girl have. In fact, even as recent as last year, I was having a board meeting I was in a board meeting with one of the like a very, very top one of the top tier one banks. And then I walked into a room, people are like, you've been this is the Amaka, or this is her. That girl that you've been hearing about that been shouting at you and telling you what to do. This this is how you were expecting one big madam Abi. I always see the shock on their face.
Patience.
Really, But after a while, I've had all sorts of comments. I've been in a place and I'm like, oh, it's very good now that we're having Gen Zs. I'm like, a Gen Z. Like this, So you have, but it just, I don't, at a point I was wondering, do I start wearing baggy? Do I stop wearing makeup? Should I try to make myself look older? I didn't care. I'll wear my 10-inch wig to the floor. In fact, I even embraced it and ran with it. I'll come in a bright orange suit, cross my leg, drop my bag. Like I embraced it to the core. But I had a lot of confidence, but I knew what was backing my confidence. There was substance behind it. And because of that, I wasn't, you will shout after a while, you calm down, you listen to me. That was kind of like the attitude. In fact, it even became a thing of, how do I put it now? I know it's coming. So we'll shall be on
Just
at the end of the day. So
amazing.
that is what I can say has been my kind of like even the greatest challenge or bias that I faced in my work life.
Amazing. I mean, I wish you could see her. If my heart was to be on display, like, I'm super inspired. God knows I'm super inspired. That's why I told you, I didn't want to introduce you as first, oh, she's my cousin or what. No, you give someone their flowers. I'm not trying to utilize privileges here, but you're one person that I would say that genuinely inspires everyone around you. But there was a statement you made, and it's synonymous to a very popular Christian song that says, "I get back in."
Yeah.
And so the question that I wanted to ask then is, what then? Because we live in a generation where people in finance, I mean, when you watch movies, for example, and for many of us who love movies, if you've watched the movie Devil's Advocate, one of the most corrupt industries in the corporate world is either the legal sector or the finance sector. That's where you find the top earners. And so there is always great level of compromise that comes with such situations. So my question then to you, because some could be seen and say, oh no, who told you this? Should have done this or compromise our values here and there. But the question now is, what role has your Christian faith played in your success story such that, you're able to look beyond the compromise and still forge ahead?
Yeah. That's a very, very good question, particularly in a market like Nigeria. So there's something I said at the beginning. I said, look, for me, only God is do or die. Everything else is secondary. That's the mindset with which I approach things. So I'm not going to compromise my values to give you what you want. There's all sorts of things going on in the industry, even some, to be honest, which the regulators are aware of, particularly in Nigerian. I mean, there's corruption everywhere, but in some markets, it's a lot more magnified than others. So in the African context, there's a lot of corruption going on. So two things I know, I've basically been immune. I don't try to involve myself in it. I don't get along with it. I shut down certain conversations even before they even arise. You know what I stand for. You know you cannot have certain conversations with me. That's one. Two, to be honest, I've also been pretty lucky. I've worked for international banks. I've not worked for any kind of like core local Nigerian entity. So I've pretty much worked for international banks where there is a lot of emphasis on compliance, on doing the right thing. So that has also, because it's worse when you're fighting an institution that wants you to do wrong. So in this case, institutions, so also look for institutions that are aligned with your values. There are some companies I know that I cannot work for, no matter how much they want to pay me, because I know what will be required of me in that role, and I know I can't do it. So you also have to look for institutions. That's one key thing people should actually check when they're going to work somewhere. A lot of Nigerians don't check corporate culture. look at the institution that you're going to work for. Does their values align with your values? I would rather face individual pressure because that I can shut down. But if you're facing pressure from an institution to do wrong, that's another ball game altogether. Then, just broadly in terms of outside the compromise, what role my faith has played in my success story. I don't know if you've heard of something called spiritual jazz before, but
That's a double bullet. Spiritual jazz.
Spiritual jazz, I have backing. That's why for me, I cannot even do because you can do all these things very well, but there are also places where time and chance comes into play. What I call the unseen hand of God, putting you in the right place at the right time, making people even receptive to the before they come. I'm not kidding. I do spiritual jazz a lot. For every meeting I have, when I wake up in the morning and I'm saying my morning prayers, I'm like, Father, these are the meetings I have for the day. I hand them over to your hands. I'll come into the meeting and say one thing that is even very basic. And the guy just turns around and said, this is the most intelligent thing I've heard all day today. It makes so much sense. In my mind, I'm laughing because I'm like, I know me myself that I don't say anything special. Sometimes it's very hard for me to lose deals. There are a few deals I have lost, particularly to me. But then, Jeffrey, I'm not kidding. I'll be lying down and the Holy Spirit will tell me, take this number. So I'm not taking somebody like, call this person now. And I just pick up the phone and call the treasurer and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Something. This is what he was like, Amaka, do you see vision? I'm literally about to get into a meeting where the banks we're going to work with will be decided. How did you call me at this point in time? And I'm like, it just crossed my mind to call you, but this is our ask. Please take it into the board meeting. As in, I cannot be into, when they say one with God is majority, I'm sorry. But if you're not a Christian, you're missing out on life. Even this, my current job, because after the recruiter had told me about the opportunity, that was like June. They hadn't advertised it. June, July, August. I was very busy. I don't have time. I'm not active. I wasn't actively looking for a job to be going to their website, World Bank website, to be checking is a role open or not. Do you get it? Because even every role goes through public procurement. So even though it has been, the recruiter had reached out to me, they will still have to advertise it and I have to apply formally. And I was traveling then. I think I was in New York, and I was about flying from New York to California. And the Holy Spirit, this was November, 6 months after the recruiter had reached out to me. The Holy Spirit just told me, Amaka, check this website now. And if there's one thing I do when I receive these types of instructions, I obey. I pulled open my laptop, and guess what? The job had been advertised, and it was closing in 3 days' time. So I would have flown to California, I'd been spending time with family. This conversation that I'm having today will not be. So there are many things that, you also, as much as you can do all things well and be excellent and be hardworking and be this, there is that flavor and favor that God gives to his children. I've had bosses who they say this guy is so wicked, or people who they say, tell me that president that they cannot reach. I will enter and I will get it and come out. But I know it's not by what I'm saying. It's the favor, it's the backing.
You get it. You get backing.
I have backing. That's why I can't leave. In fact, I was with some banks in New York. I think it was like 3 years ago. And one of the women there, she was an MD in Citibank. And she just reached out to me. She was just like, you have a lot of favor. It's not easy for you to be talking, and then you see all these people, all these ministers, everybody that just there listening to you, and you can say exactly something that someone else has said, but yours will make so much sense, and people will just buy it. It's not you, it's favor. Like, I know, So for me, and for those, I believe most of the people who are joining this platform because it's faith-based are Christians. I'm just like, he who has God has everything. So I don't panic. There are even many times when they want to move me from one country to another. Maybe it doesn't happen and someone covers it from the top. I don't even fret because it has played out so many times that eventually the time I ended up going will be the best that God could have fashioned for me. It was now that it was intentional, So many times I operate from a place of rest. I don't really operate from a place of I want to kill myself. I mean, I do well. I'll give my father is an excellent father. Look at his creation. So I give 100% of my ability to everything, but I also know that I'm not doing it by my own.
By your power.
I have a helper by my side, the
Hmm.
Holy Spirit, who is guiding me every step of the way. So
Hmm.
that has been a secret ingredient
Man,
of success.
man. Like, I'm not sure the camera can show my goosebumps.
Dramatic.
Honestly, honestly, I'm not being dramatic here, because you see, it reminds me of the story of Joseph. There are many a times where, and that's why for many people who know me on a personal level, I despise that word. I'm self-made. Because you can't really be self-made, because there was something you mentioned here. You said, I will do all the preparations. I will be excellent in everything. But there is an element of divine providence. That aspect of key timing. The Bible says that the steps of the righteous are ordered by God. Of all the possible times I needed to be there, why now? Of all the times that I needed to make that phone call, why now? And you see that that's the advantage, that the Holy Spirit, for us as believers, is is the cheat mode. Is cheating. So to those who don't believe, is cheating. But to us that believe,
Ah,
I'm sorry, it's our nature, like it's only God that can. I mean, man, this is amazing. This is amazing. I'm mindful of your time, to be honest. I'm mindful of your time, but just to ask you one question, because you've been taking us on a high, on a high, on a high, and many people will think, oh, this lady must be a genius. I'm sure she started reading from her mother's womb, and as a matter of fact, she could speak the moment she was born. But the question that I want to ask is, what would you have to say to someone who already wants to tread a similar path as you, but has oftentimes been confronted with failures and setbacks, not once, not twice? What would you have to say to such a person?
yeah. There is this very basic principle. Everybody hears it all the time, but just that many times you don't imbibe it, which is do the best you can and leave the rest to God. So if you do the best you can and you still failed, no problem. Just continue. And as you said, the Holy Spirit orders the steps of the righteous. There are times that things have not kind of like, I remember done I did myself, done I can, few, one level, I didn't fail anything, went through, done everything, every exam, I'll be carrying an award. I did CFA, I failed level two, I think I failed level two times, you know. But you just continue. And it may seem very easy, but I had a friend who people learn to laugh at yourself. Like life is
Hmm.
serious. I had a friend who
Hmm.
was denied. I think it was actually one of my cousins. She was denied visa, like something basic as it, and she kept hiding it because she felt so ashamed that a whole me that UK denied visa. When she told me, I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is so minor." There are so many areas you can feel that in life. You've not even done marriage. You've not done this. You've not had that. What you didn't do, then you go and crucify yourself. So learn to do the best you can in life. But when things don't work out for any reason, you move on. And one thing we always have to know is that I always believe one thing. I'm like, all things work together for the good of those who love God. There are
Hmm.
things that may be supposed failures in our eyes, right? Or setbacks. But guess what? God kept you there for a reason.
Absolutely.
Someone who was kept in one position at work for 10 years. But that was because there was someone that God wanted him to meet in that his role and change
Hmm.
the person's life. When he
Hmm.
left that position, this guy maybe he got promoted every year so that he can recover lost time.
Lost time.
So there are things that I've had times where certain things I may have. I remember, in fact, my sometimes it looks like I had it all when I was in final year in school. They started this whole what do they even call it again? They started this whole this Procter and Gamble came to school then, and they said, look, everybody with 4.2 GPA and above should write exams for their job. Basically, they were going to take you, and you go to Geneva. So for me, I was so excited. I was going to go and work in Geneva for 2 years. it was very appealing. I didn't even know my career path. It was an accounting role, and I had prepared. I read that interview book back to back, the exam, because we had to write an exam. And this is everybody with 4.2 GP and above in all the departments, accounting, economics, like all the major departments. Eventually, I was selected from Unilag as the top person from the exam. And then we started interviews. I bought fine suits. Those were my first suits I ever owned in life. I even remember it. I even bought TM Louis shirts then. I with cufflinks, I probably looked like I was choking myself. But that was how serious I took it. And I remember that shirt, blue and pink. and then after I go to the final stage of the interview, they now called me that I didn't get the job. I was so heartbroken. And I trusted God for that job. I was so heartbroken. God, this is how I didn't go to Geneva. This is how, Jeffrey, till today, I thank God that I
Ah,
missed that job. My career path would have been completely different. I would have been working as an accountant. So I just joke that maybe now I'll be there accounting for stationaries. I mean, I'm joking about it. People have great careers there. But I would not have been in a career path. And my career path, now to be honest, I really love investment banking. Like I love what I was doing. I love being in the finance sector. I love capital raising. I love what I am doing. But it would have completely changed my career path. So sometimes let's not take life too serious. Learn to don't I'm not saying laugh at your failures from a point of but learn to laugh at life sometimes. And guess what? He who has life has hope. You keep pressing
absolutely.
forward. That's it. You keep pressing forward until you get to where you want to be. And even if the failures were as a result of your own mistakes, because you could have prepared, done everything you can, and had setbacks. But maybe you didn't plan properly. Maybe there's, because whether we like it or not, there are guiding principles to success in life. Whether it's business, whether it's life, whether it's career, there are guiding principles to success. Maybe you missed it along the line. Maybe you made mistakes and failed. Guess what? You are alive. Pick up and continue moving. Last, this world is not where it ends. We all shall go.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's how I.
Absolutely.
And then you have happiness.
Absolutely. Man, to be honest, I wish I could keep you as long as I can. But I know that just like how they say Superman or Superwoman has to go and save the world, right? But just one more question from me before I give it up to the guests to ask any questions that they might have. There was a day I came to your house, me and my brother. I think it was in July when you were still living in London. And I asked the question, and I just jokingly said it. And I said, oh, man, Amaka, you're going to be the next Okonjo Iweala of our time. And it was almost like as if you were fighting with me, like you just rebuffed it. No, 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 I'm going to be better than her. And it's not like as if you rehearsed it. Because assuming you rehearsed it, then there's someone will say, oh, maybe she's acting up. But it was already in it. And so for me, the question I want to ask you is, what then drives you? What's your motivation every single day? Because someone will see you now and say, oh, after all, she's accomplished. Perhaps it's time to rest on your laurels and just, because for many who don't know, she's not 40 yet. Okay? And so that's to tell you, and she's not aiming to stop. And so the question is, what drives you?
I don't know who told you I'm not aiming to stop, but I can't remember when I said that. See, that statement I made, I don't really like, will I say, because when you compare yourself to somebody, or when you say you want to be this person, you've set a ceiling. That's the ceiling, right? You can admire what someone has accomplished, but let that not be your ceiling because it limits you to maybe even becoming more. So that's a joke I always say. Someone tells me, if I remember, like, president's wife for future. I say, why can't I be the president? Like, why am I doing
Gil,
that?
Gil.
So that's just like a thing. Don't benchmark. Don't do that. Don't give me somebody else's role. We all have our different roles that God has called us for. But I think, what drives me has kind of changed over the years. As shallow as it may sound, I think initially what was driving me was, I would say, the sheer uh will I say I don't want to say self-actualization, but it's almost like I was almost driven by success. Like I want to be the best version of myself. So, and when people tell me that you keep chasing something that has no end, like after every 3 years, you're already wondering next. After every 3 years, in fact, even my first day at this job, I sat down and I'm like, okay, this is my career here. What I just got in here. Who are those that have come here? Where have they gone? What did they get to? I called one of my friends. I was like, she just said, Amaka, it's your first day in this new office. First day, you don't go home paintings in your office. You're already thinking of how do you what is wrong with you? Can you just relax and enjoy this place that you have come to and breathe, before you start again? But for me, is that thing of I want to be better, I've accomplished this, I want to go higher, I've done this, I want to go more. There is more. And like it's almost like the parable of the 10 talents. I'm just like, look, God has given me a lot of resources. He's giving you time.
Hmm.
I'm bound to use the talents that God has given me. But now the more spiritually mature I get, right, I do this thing of like check your motives and make sure that what still drives me is in line with God. Yes, I may want to be the best of myself and use my talent, but also make sure that at the end of the day, I'm not because I like to make impact, but I'm doing it because I like impact. It's who I am, right? But also making sure that it ties into God's own agenda.
Hmm.
So to more consciously see the work I'm doing as a means of serving God. Because sometimes it could be all be a means of I'm trying to get better, I'm trying to grow to what end? And that's why sometimes if you're not careful, it leads you to a place of discontent if you're not where you think you should be, or it leads you to a place of even compromise or a place of dissatisfaction or just place of chasing and endless. So just make sure that you realign at every point in time, make sure I realign myself to the will of God. God, at the center of this all is you. I want to be the best I can be. I want to accomplish everything you want me to accomplish. I want to make impact. But I don't want to make generic impact, right? I want to make impact where you want me to make impact. So that's the new journey that I am on, which is making sure that I realign all these my interests and desires to the will of God for me at that particular time. That's just the stuff.
Fantastic. 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 We've got a question here from the comment section. It's from one of your cousins, and she says, what are your thoughts on career progression without an Ivy League education?
So that's it. You don't need an Ivy League education to progress your career. I think there's something I said every time. What we're aiming for is all different. So know where you want to get to, know what you need to get there, right? For me, part of the reason for going to an Ivy League school is I schooled in Nigeria. I went to Unilag. I wanted also something that and a reputation that was reputable, that people could recognize. That's one. But outside of the name, I also wanted to build a strong alumni network with people who
Hmm.
matter, with the future leaders of tomorrow. So
Hmm.
for me, the network was very key and strategic to why I chose the schools I went to. And I wanted it in Europe and the US so that at least cross Atlantic, you have a very strong network. But that being said, from a career perspective, if you have an MBA, there's some jobs that need an MBA. For instance, for you to work in the World Bank, you need an MBA to work for the World Bank. At a certain level, you must have an MBA. But nobody says that MBA must be from an Ivy League school. There's no job that will tell you you must get an MBA from an Ivy League school to be in the job. There's no job that will tell you that. So long as you have MBA, if it matters for your field, because guess what? An MBA may be relevant in one field, it may be something else, another skill or another degree or something that is required for another field, depending on what you want to pursue. So I would say don't focus on whether it's Ivy League or not. Do what you can afford because you cannot break the bank that you're trying
True.
to get somewhere. Do what you can afford so long as you're acquiring skills that are in line with the job that you're seeking or career progression. And then most importantly, what matters a lot in career progression is experience. You're not going to spend 3 hours in an interview. You're not going to spend 40 minutes in an interview discussing your MBA. They will look at it and pass. What they want to discuss is what have you
Have
done
you done?
and what can you do. So that's just what matters most.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Guys, any more questions? I don't want to keep so someone I don't know who is this. What? This is just family banter, anyways. So someone says
We bring
here,
our family members that are on this chat so that we can take it to WhatsApp at this rate. Hello?
yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. So the question here is, please, how do you handle your schedules and mentoring? I mean, for many who want to talk to you, who want to walk your path or be accountable to you, what avenue have you created to point to those who are willing to receive?
Hmm. That's a very hard question. Mentoring is so hard. Different people. So I always say that people have so this is me now beating around the bush. Start directly with your questions. What avenue have I created to pour out? So, in terms of a concrete avenue, we mentioned earlier that I have my Female Scholars Foundation, but that's focused on poor girls in the villages, right? And training them through university. So, for example, we had an exam this year in Okititi Girls Secondary School. We had people from Okititi, Newi, all the different villages, maybe about 60 or 70 candidates. Those who get through that program would not only get university education, but they would also get access to mentoring. So that is the more organized platform that I use for mentoring the younger ones who were grooming, to be the future leaders of tomorrow. Now, for those who are already, out of school big, I don't have any specific platform. I speak in webinars or whatever it is, but I would say my doors are open. I love to talk. I love to give advice. So if anyone ever calls me any day, I'm one of the most approachable people you can ever meet. Sometimes you have a lot of random people reaching out to you on LinkedIn. I want you to be my mentor, but you can't really mentor someone you don't know. But if you're someone within my sphere of influence and you reach out to me for advice, why not? I'm more than happy to guide you.
Amazing, amazing. Um, okay. Olivia is saying, do you have any tips for how to speak up and recreating your success, especially when you're trying to do it in a new country and starting out in a small role with prospects of growth?
Do you have any tips for how to speak up? So when you're starting out in a small role, nothing is small. Let's even start with that. There was something I said at the beginning. I said, if they give you plates to wash, wash it like the best plate washer in that place. So don't look at any. There's a part of the Bible that says, whatever task you do it like you're doing it unto the Lord, right? So
Whatever your hand finds to do, do it well.
do it well. So don't think of anything because that's the genesis of people's failure. Sometimes it may be something to be honest with you, sometimes it's even in inconsequential roles. One of the things that had given me, I was in some committee that my boss drives me to one time when I was an analyst. What was my role in that committee? Taking notes. I just used to take notes of the meetings that they've had because these were all senior industry leaders. So as they're talking, I'll be taking notes for them and helping them compile. But then the way I took those notes and organizing the meeting, so if they're having sessions, I'll make sure I organize the sessions and everything. I took it to heart too. In fact, I even set alarm for them. I'll call their room, set alarm for them, wake them up. It's time for this thing to start. If we go to a hotel for a retreat, I did that admin work. It wasn't even part of my work. It was just me assisting one of my bosses. Do you get? But I did it with so much dedication and favor that in fact that's the story I gave well later. I now started even talking in their meetings from note taker. I started chipping my own opinion. In fact, after a while, I became almost a committee member without title. I'll be giving opinion, I'll even be shouting at them. I met one of the people in she's either MD or an ED of one of the banks. And we got there to look for a particular international transaction. And when we got there, she was so happy to see me that she just kept hugging me. I've not seen this woman in like 15 years. Just kept hugging me and hugging me. Even when I'm talking, she was like, see this small girl that was small then. No, Amaka is now grown. Executive director. I feel like a proud mommy. She will hug me, hug me, hug me. After a while, we're like, look, let's even cut down to chase. Like, my chairman has met your chairman. We are trying to get business for this business from you guys. Like, what do we need to do differently? She was like, you don't need to do anything differently. Our own is here and it's my duty to take it, our duty to take care of our own. She turned to
Our
like the
own.
And she was like, you don't need, as in really, you hired an asset, and you don't need to sell me. I'm sold. Why? From note taking that I was doing in one small place 15 years ago. So don't look at anything as small.
Mm.
Whatever small thing you're doing and doing it diligently, you will grow in that field. And then with regards to speaking up, there is no, I don't know how to kind of like, will I say teach people to speak up, but don't be, people are not as bad as you think they are. And don't forget that you have the helper. If you don't know how to put things because, oh, I want to talk to this person, but I don't know how to position it so that they receive it well, ask for advice. Talk to a friend and say, oh, look, I want to approach someone, or you can talk to me or somebody who knows better. I want to approach someone and speak up on this circumstance. What is the best way for me to do it? And then they can guide you. And little by little, after a while, you start to learn your own tricks, your own communication style, that works. And as I said, eventually, when people see that you're doing their work and doing it well, even
Well,
that what you're doing, honestly, if you say, please, may I just, share this, or how can I ask for this, or they will listen to you.
absolutely. There's a quote from Zig Ziglar that says, if you help as many people get what they want, you wouldn't, it kind of says you wouldn't have to say much for them to get you what you want. And so I think at every point in time, you're sowing seeds. And, someone here is saying, what's the worst that could happen? The worst case scenario is that they'll say no. Best case
Exactly.
scenario is that they'll say yes.
They say
You know,
yes. Exactly.
so exactly. Man, Amaka, I can't thank you enough. Guys, we can't take any questions again because I promised her that I wouldn't keep her any later than 9:30 UK or Nigerian time. But again, for those of us who are new to the community here, the next date for our meeting is on the 23rd of October. And the idea behind this and the theme for the meeting is bending the mind to birth the life that you desire. And this case, we're having no guest other than myself. And so when I say myself, I'll be the one that is taking the session. And one of the reasons why that is going to be the case is particularly that I've observed that a large contributor to the life that we want, first of all, starts with the mindset. And so it's going to be a session where I teach people or those who are in our community on how to bend the mind. How do I get my mind to conform to the things that I want to see, and then we'll carry on from there. And so if you're new in the community, you could scan the barcode right there on the screen. But again, it's a privilege to have you. If you want to join the community as well, there are various ways to join. But as well, for many of us who would want to connect with Amaka, she is available on LinkedIn. Just search for Amaka Nsofo on LinkedIn and let her know you're coming from the Being the Best of You community. I think she would give you special privileges. You never know. You never know. So maybe you're looking for an assistant note taker in Washington, D.C. I think someone in the Being the Best of You community could be of help. But again, Amaka, I can't thank you enough. I'm very most grateful. And like we always say in the Being the Best of You community, until next time, keep being the best of you. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Good night.